The sky above Verith, 9 split open with fire and screaming metal. Pieces of the colonial transport ship fell like burning stars through the thick clouds. Deep in the jungle below, every creature went silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Inside one of the falling escape pods, a woman held her son tight against her chest. Her name was Laura. Her son was Danny. He was 7 years old. The pod shook so hard that Danny could not tell which way was up or down. His mother's arms were the only thing that felt real. Then came the impact. The pod crashed through trees and vines before slamming into the soft jungle floor. Everything went dark for a moment. When Danny opened his eyes, red emergency lights filled the small space. His mother was bleeding. A piece of metal had gone through her side. Laura knew she was dying. She had maybe an hour, maybe less. But her son was alive. Her son was breathing. That was all that mattered now. She pulled herself up and opened the pod door. Hot, wet air rushed in. The jungle smelled like rotting plants and something else. Something alive. Something watching. Laura grabbed Danny's hand and pulled him into the jungle. Every step sent pain through her body, but she did not stop. She could hear things moving in the trees around them. Big things. Fast things. She found what she was looking for near a massive tree with roots as thick as walls. There was a hollow space between 2 roots, just big enough for a small boy. Laura pushed Danny inside. He tried to hold on to her, but she was too weak to let him. "Listen to me," she whispered. Her face was very pale now. "You stay here. You stay quiet. No matter what you see, no matter what you hear. Do not run. Running makes you pray. Do you understand?" Danny nodded. Tears ran down his dirty face. "I love you," Laura said. "I love you more than all the stars." She touched his cheek one last time. Then she walked away from the tree. She walked toward the sounds in the jungle. She walked until she fell and could not get up again. Danny watched through a gap in the roots. He saw his mother lying still on the ground. He saw the shadows moving closer. Then he saw a Ravik. The creature was nothing like anything Danny had ever seen. It stood on 4 powerful legs, but its upper body rose like a man's. Her eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. Its skin was covered in scales that shifted color with every movement. Claws as long as knives clicked against the ground as it walked. Ravik was the alpha of his pack. He had hunted on this world for 30 cycles. He had killed creatures 10 times his size. He feared nothing till he approached the dead woman and sniffed the air around her. Human. He had heard of them. Soft creatures from a distant world. Weak. Fragile. Easy prey. But something was wrong. The scent was not right. There was another human nearby. A smaller one. Ravik lifted his head and looked directly at the hollow space between the roots. Danny's heart stopped. The creature was looking right at him. Those 4 yellow eyes burned through the darkness like they could see straight into his soul. Every part of Danny wanted to run. Every part of him screamed to get away from this monster. But he remembered his mother's words. Running makes you pray. Danny did not run. He stared back at the creature. His small hands shook. His whole body trembled. But he did not look away. Ravik tilted his head. In all his years of hunting, he had never seen prey do this. Every creature ran. Every creature tried to escape. That was the law of the jungle. That was how things worked. But this tiny human just sat there, watching him with wet eyes that held no surrender. Behind Ravik, 2 members of his pack emerged from the shadows. Syrah, a young female with silver scales, and Drax, a scarred male who had been hunting since before Ravik was born. "Alpha," Drax growled. "There's another one. Small, hiding in the roots." "I know," Ravik said. "Shall I kill it?" Ravik did not answer. He was still looking at the child, still trying to understand what he was seeing. "Alpha," Syrah asked, "what do we do?" Ravik made a decision that surprised even himself. "We leave it," he said. Drax's eyes went wide. "Leave it? It is prey. It is weak. It will die anyway." "Then let it die on its own," Ravik replied. "I will not waste my claws on something that does not run." He turned away from the tree and walked back into the jungle. His pack followed, confused but obedient. Danny watched them go. He watched until the shadows swallowed them completely. Then he looked at his mother's body lying in the fading light that he wanted to scream. He wanted to cry until his throat burned. But he remembered her words, stay quiet, stay small, do not run. Danny pulled his knees to his chest and wrapped his arms around them. The jungle grew dark around him. Strange sounds filled the air. Things moved in the trees above. But Danny did not run. He closed his eyes and whispered the last words his mother had said to him. I love you more than all the stars. And somewhere in the darkness, Ravik stopped walking. He looked back toward the tree where the tiny human hid. For the first time in his life, the alpha hunter felt something he could not name. It felt almost like respect. 3 days passed on Verith, 9, and Danny was still alive. This fact bothered Ravik more than he wanted to admit. The alpha had returned to the crash site twice now. Not to hunt, not to kill, just to watch. He told himself it was curiosity. He told himself the child would be dead soon anyway, and he simply wanted to see how long weak prey could last. But deep down, Ravik knew he was lying to himself. Danny had learned quickly. On the first day, he cried beside his mother's body until no more tears would come. On the second day, he buried her using his bare hands and sharp rocks. On the third day, he started to survive. He found insects under rotting logs and ate them raw. He learned which leaves collected rainwater in their centers. He built a small shelter between the roots where he had hidden, using branches and large leaves to keep out the rain. Ravik watched all of this from the shadows. The child moved wrong. He made too much noise. He left tracks everywhere he went. Any real predator would have found him and killed him within an hour. But Danny was still breathing. You are obsessed, Drax said one evening as the pack gathered to rest. The human child is nothing. Prey that cannot run is not worth our attention. I'm not obsessed, Ravik replied. I am observing. Observing what? How to starve slowly. Syrah, the young female with silver scales, stayed quiet. She had seen the child too. She had watched him bury his mother with those tiny hands. Something about it had stayed with her that on the fourth day, everything changed. Syrah was hunting alone near the edge of their territory when she stepped into a trap. It was a wire snare set by a rival pack, hidden beneath dead leaves. The wire wrapped around her front leg and pulled tight. She fell hard, and the wire cut into her scales. She tried to break free, but every movement made the wire dig deeper. Blood began to drip onto the ground. The smell would attract other predators soon. Bigger ones. Ones that would not care that she belonged to Ravik's pack. Syrah roared for help, but she was too far from the others. No one would hear her in time. Then she heard something moving through the bushes. She turned her head, ready to fight whatever was coming. Her claws spread wide. Her teeth showed that a small human child stepped out of the green. Danny froze when he saw her. She was one of them. One of the creatures that had come to his mother's body. One of the monsters from his nightmares. But she was also hurt. Trapped. Bleeding. Danny's mother had been a nurse before they left Earth. She had taught him basic things. How to clean a wound. How to stop bleeding. How to help people who were hurt. People, not monsters. But looking at the trapped creature now, Danny did not see a monster. He saw pain. He saw fear. He saw something that needed help. Syrah snarled at him as he approached. Stay back, prey. I will tear you apart. Danny did not understand her words, but he understood the warning. He held up his empty hands and moved slowly. Very slowly. I want to help, he said softly. Please, let me help. Syrah snapped her jaws at him, but he did not run. Just like before. Just like when Ravik had found him. Danny knelt beside the wire and studied it. It was metal, twisted and strong. He could not break it with his hands, but he could see how it worked. He could see the knot. Working carefully, Danny began to loosen the wire. Syrah watched him with wide eyes. Her instincts screamed at her to kill him. He was right there. So close. So easy. But he was helping her. The wire came loose. Syrah pulled her leg free and stumbled backward. Blood still dripped from the wound, but she could move again. Danny tore a strip from his shirt and held it out to her. For your leg, he said, to stop the blood. Syrah did not take it. She stared at him like he was something impossible, something that should not exist. Then she heard the sounds. The rival pack had found them. 3 hunters emerged from the trees, their scales dark red and their eyes hungry. They saw Syrah, wounded and weak. They saw the tiny human standing beside her. Well, the leader said. Ravik's pet female and a human child. Today is a good day for hunting. Danny picked up a stick from the ground. It was sharp on one end, broken to a point. He stood between Sira and the approaching hunters that he was 7 years old. He weighed less than the smallest hunter's front leg. He had no claws, no fangs, no scales, but he stood there anyway. Run, small thing, the leader laughed. Make this fun for us. Danny did not run. The leader's smile faded. What is wrong with you? Before anyone could move, a roar shook the jungle. The trees themselves seemed to tremble. Birds exploded from the canopy in a storm of wings and screams. Ravik burst through the brush like a living earthquake. His 4 eyes burned with fury. His claws dug trenches in the soft ground. The rival hunters ran. They did not look back. Ravik stood there, breathing hard, his massive body between Danny and where the enemies had fled. Then he turned and looked at the child. Danny still held the pointed stick. His hand shook, but he had not dropped it. He had not run. And behind him, Sira was alive. Ravik looked at the torn piece of shirt wrapped around his hunter's leg. He looked at the loosened wire on the ground. He looked at the tiny human who had protected one of his pack. Something shifted in the alpha's chest. Something old and certain cracked just a little. What are you? Ravik asked quietly. Danny did not understand the words. But he understood the tone. It was not a threat. It was a question. The pack did not want him there. Danny could feel their hatred like heat from a fire. Ravik had brought him to the central den, a network of caves carved into a hillside where the pack lived and raised their young. It was the first time in Caliph history that prey had walked into this sacred place and lived. Most of the pack thought it should not live much longer. This is madness, Drax growled during the pack meeting that night. The Alpha has lost his mind. We are hunters. We do not keep prey as pets. He saved Sira, said a younger hunter named Kel. That must count for something. It counts for nothing. He is weak. He is small. He will slow us down and bring shame to our pack. Ravik listened to all of it. He sat at the head of the gathering, his 4 eyes watching everything but revealing nothing. Danny sat in a corner of the cave, making himself as small as possible. He did not understand what they were saying, but he understood the angry looks. He understood the bared fangs. Only Sira stayed near him. Her leg was healing well, thanks to the herbs she had gathered after Danny cleaned the wound. She had not spoken to him directly, but she had not left his side either. Enough, Ravik finally said. The cave went silent. The human stays. I have decided. For how long? Drax demanded. Until I decide otherwise. Drax's claws scraped against the stone floor. And if he proves to be useless? If he becomes a burden? Ravik's eyes narrowed. Then I will deal with him myself. Does that satisfy you? Drax said nothing more. The meeting ended. Danny lived in the corner of Sira's sleeping area. She brought him food because he could not hunt. She showed him which plants were safe to eat and which would make him sick. She did all of this without speaking to him, because what words could bridge the gap between hunter and prey? But Danny was human, and humans are built to learn that he watched everything. He listened to every conversation. He noticed how the hunters greeted each other, how they showed respect to the alpha, how they expressed anger or affection. Within 2 weeks, he spoke his first Caliph word that he was helping Sira arrange dried meat for storage when he pointed to her and said, Sira. She froze. Her silver scales rippled with surprise. Sira, Danny said again, touching his chest, then pointing to her. Danny. Sira. Sira stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she pointed to herself. Sira, she confirmed. She pointed to him. Danny. It was the beginning. Over the following weeks, Danny learned more. He learned the words for food, water, sleep, danger. He learned how to say thank you and I am sorry. He learned the hand signals the pack used during hunts. And he started to help. His first contribution was small. He noticed that the cave where they stored water collected bugs that made the water taste bad. Danny spent 2 days building a cover from woven branches. The water stayed clean. Then he showed them how to make simple traps for the small rodents that lived near the caves. The hunters thought catching such tiny prey was beneath them, but the young ones loved it. They turned it into a game. Ravik watched all of this from distance. He never spoke to Danny directly, but he noticed everything. Then came a fever point one morning. Danny did not wake up. His skin was burning hot, and his breathing came in short, painful gasps. An alien bacteria had found its way into his blood, and his human body did not know how to fight it. Syrah found him shaking in his sleeping spot. She called for help, but the other hunters just looked at each other. "It is dying," Drax said. "Let it die. This is the natural way." "We could help him," Syrah argued. "The healing bark. It works on our sick. Maybe it will work on him. Waste medicine on prey? Never." Syrah looked at the others. No one would meet her eyes. That night, while the pack slept, Syrah crept out of the den. She traveled to a distant part of the forest where a special tree grew. Its bark could cure almost any sickness, but it was rare and precious. The pack saved it only for their most valued hunters. She brought it back and crushed it into a paste. She mixed it with water and forced it down Danny's throat. For 2 days, nothing happened. Danny burned with fever. He cried out in a language no one understood. He called for his mother on the 3rd day. The fever broke. Danny opened his eyes to find Syrah watching him. Her silver scales caught the light from the cave entrance. She looked tired, like she had not slept in days. "Syrah," Danny whispered. She leaned closer. Danny reached out and touched her face. His hand was still weak, still shaking, but his eyes were clear. "Brother," he said in English. Syrah did not know the word, but she could see what it meant in his eyes. She had saved him, not because she had to, not because anyone told her to. She had saved him because she chose to. Syrah pressed her snout gently against his forehead. It was how Caliph mothers comforted their young. "Brother," she repeated, learning the strange human word. From the entrance of the sleeping area, Ravik watched in silence. He had known what Syrah did. He had chosen not to stop her. Looking at them now, the tiny human and the young hunter, the alpha realized something that would change everything. Danny was no longer prey, that he was pack. Once every cycle, when all 3 moons rose together in the night sky, the packs gathered. They came from every corner of Vareth. 9, hundreds of hunters meeting at the ancient gathering grounds to settle disputes, form alliances, and honor the old ways. Ravik had no choice but to attend. And he had no choice but to bring Danny. The walk took 4 days. Danny rode on Syrah's back when his small legs grew too tired to continue. The other hunters pretended not to notice, but their disgust was clear. Prey riding a hunter. It was shameful, but Danny had learned enough of their language now to understand one important thing. The Grand Alpha, a legendary hunter named Dravos, had heard about him. Dravos wanted to see this strange creature that lived among wolves but did not run. When they finally reached the gathering grounds, Danny's breath caught in his throat. Thousands of Caliph filled the massive stone arena. Their scales glittered in the moonlight like a sea of jewels. The sound of their growls and conversations was like thunder that never stopped. And at the center of it all sat Dravos. The Grand Alpha was ancient. Scars covered every inch of his body. One of his 4 eyes was blind and white, but the other 3 burned with an intelligence and cruelty that made even Ravik look away. "So," Dravos said, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade, "this is the prey that thinks it is a hunter." The arena went silent. I turned to Danny. Ravik stepped forward and bowed his head. "Grand Alpha, the human has proven useful. He has helped our pack. He has shown courage." "Courage?" Dravos laughed. It was an ugly sound. Prey cannot have courage. Prey can only have luck that has not yet run out. He rose from his seat and walked toward Danny. The crowd parted for him like water around a stone. Danny stood his ground. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might break his ribs. But he did not step back. He did not look away. Dravos stopped right in front of him. The Grand Alpha was so large that Danny had to crane his neck all the way back to see his face. "You do not run," Dravos observed. "Why?" Danny answered in careful Caliph, his accent still rough but understandable. "Running makes you prey." "I'm not prey." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A human speaking their language. It was unheard of. Dravos was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to address the gathering. "The human claims it is not prey. Very well, let's test this claim." He pointed to a dark pit at the far end of the arena. "The trial of blood." One night in the pit with 3 beasts. If the human survives until dawn, it may live among us. If it dies, then it was always prey. Ravik stepped forward. Grand Alpha, I must protest. The child is only silence. Dravos did not even look at him. You brought this creature here. You defended it. Now, let it defend itself. 2 hunters grabbed Danny and dragged him toward the pit. Syrah tried to follow, but others held her back. Danny, she called out, using his human name. Danny, but there was nothing she could do. They threw him into the pit. Danny fell 10 feet before hitting the sandy ground below. The walls were smooth stone, impossible to climb. Above, thousands of Caliph looked down at him like spectators at a show. Then they released the beast. 3 creatures dropped into the pit from different openings. They were off-world predators, imported specifically for trials like this. Each one was the size of a large dog, with too many legs and mouths full of needle-sharp teeth. Danny backed against the wall. He had no weapon, no automat, no chance. The beasts circled him, their clicking sounds filling the pit. They were confused. This prey was so small, so weak. Why was it not running? Why was it not screaming? Danny sat down in the center of the pit. He crossed his legs and placed his hands on his knees. He closed his eyes. Above, the crowd went quiet. Even Dravos leaned forward. The beast continued to circle. One darted forward, snapping its jaws just inches from Danny's face. He did not move. Another scratched his arm, drawing blood. Still, he did not move. Hours passed. The moons traveled across the sky. Danny sat perfectly still, barely breathing, while 3 killing machines circled him endlessly. He thought about his mother. He thought about Syrah. He thought about all the times he had wanted to run but chose to stay. When dawn finally broke over the arena, Danny opened his eyes. The beasts lay around him, exhausted from circling prey that would not be prey. They had not eaten him. They had not known what to do with something that refused to fear them. Dravos jumped down into the pit. His landing shook the ground. He walked up to Danny and stared down at him with those ancient, terrible eyes. You did not survive, the Grand Alpha said slowly. Survival means fighting, running, hiding. You did none of these things. Danny looked up at him. I refuse to be prey, he said. Dravos tilted his head. What are you then? Danny thought about the question. He thought about everything he had learned, everything he had lost, everything he had found. I am brother to Hunter, he answered. For a long moment, Dravos said nothing. The entire arena held its breath. Then the Grand Alpha threw back his head and laughed. But this time, it was not an ugly sound. It was something else entirely. It was respect. Brother to Hunter, Dravos repeated. He reached down and pulled Danny to his feet. Then you shall be marked as one. And the arena erupted in roars. The scar on Danny's arm never stopped hurting. Not really. Some mornings he would wake up and feel the burning, like the ceremonial blade was cutting into his skin all over again. But he never complained. The scar meant something. It meant he belonged. 8 months had passed since the trial of blood. 8 months since Dravos had carved the hunter's sign into Danny's flesh and declared him worthy to live among the Caliph. In that time, everything had changed. Danny was no longer just a strange creature the pack tolerated. He was useful. He was necessary, that he could not hunt like them. His body was too slow, too weak, too soft. But he could do things they could not. He could track patterns in the weather that even the eldest hunters missed. He could find water sources during the dry season. He could treat wounds that would have killed pack members before. And he could think in ways that surprised them. Ravik had started bringing Danny along on scouting missions. Not to hunt, but to observe. Danny would watch the landscape and point out things the hunters overlooked. A hidden path through dangerous terrain. A cave that could shelter them during storms. Weaknesses in rival pack territories. The human sees differently, Ravik told Syrah one night. His eyes are weak, but his mind is sharp. Syrah had grown close to Danny over the months. She taught him to move quietly through the forest. She showed him how to read the marks other packs left on trees to claim territory. She protected him when the older hunters still looked at him with hate. In return, Danny taught her human words. Please, thank you, friend, brother, She liked that last one best. Then the ships came. Danny saw them first, bright lights moving across the night sky in a pattern that could only mean one thing. Search vessels. Human search vessels. They were looking for survivors from the crash. For 3 nights, Danny watched the ships scan the jungle. They came closer each time. Soon they would find him. Soon they would take him away. You should signal them, Cirrus said one evening. They are your kind. Your pack. Danny looked at her. His Caliph was fluent now, though he still had an accent. You are my pack. We are hunters. You are human. I am both. Cirrus made a sound that was almost like a laugh. You are strange, little brother. Before Danny could respond, a roar echoed through the jungle. Not a Caliph roar. Something bigger. Something worse. A Garath. The Garath were the only creatures on Vareth 9 that even the Caliph feared. They were massive, armored beasts with 6 legs and jaws that could crush stone. They did not hunt often, but when they did, nothing survived, and this one was hunting Cirrus's scouting group. Danny ran toward the sound without thinking. He heard Ravik shouting behind him, telling him to stop, but he did not listen. He burst through the undergrowth and found Chaos Point. 3 hunters were down, wounded but alive. 2 more were trying to distract the Garath while the others escaped. And Cirrus was pinned beneath one of its massive claws, her silver scales cracked and bleeding. The Garath pressed down. Cirrus screamed. Danny did not think. He grabbed a bone knife from one of the fallen hunters and charged. The Garath saw him coming. It almost seemed amused. This tiny creature, barely a snack, running toward it with something sharp in its hand. Danny ducked under the beast's swinging tail. He rolled between its legs. And then he did something that should have been impossible. He found the gap in its armor. Every creature has a weakness. Danny had spent months studying the wildlife of this world, learning their patterns, their anatomy, their vulnerabilities. He knew where the Garath's scales were thinnest. He drove the knife into that spot with every bit of strength his small body possessed. The Garath screamed. It was a sound that shook leaves from trees and sent birds fleeing for miles. The beast reared back, releasing Cirrus, and thrashed wildly. Danny held on. He pushed the knife deeper. The Garath fell. When Ravik arrived with reinforcements, he found Danny standing over the massive corpse. The boy was covered in blood, most of it not his own. The bone knife was still in his hand. Cirrus lay nearby, badly hurt but alive. Because of Danny. Because a human child had done what grown hunters feared to attempt. Ravik walked up to Danny slowly. The other hunters watched in silence. You killed a Garath, Ravik said. There was something new in his voice. Something Danny had never heard before. It was hurting my sister, Danny replied. Ravik looked at Cirrus, then back at Danny. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then the Alpha did something he had never done in all his years of leading the pack. He lowered his head to Danny, the gesture of one equal acknowledging another. You hunt now, little brother, Ravik said. Danny lowered his head in return. Blood dripped from his face onto the jungle floor. Above them, human search ships continued their pattern across the sky. Danny looked up at them one last time. Then he looked at Ravik, at Cirrus, at the hunters who had become his family. I am already home, he said quietly, and the ships flew on, their scanners finding nothing but empty jungle below. The diplomatic shuttle landed at the edge of the jungle, its engines stirring up leaves and dirt in swirling clouds. Armed guards in human military uniforms took positions around the craft, their weapons ready. They were afraid. Everyone who came to Vareth 9 was afraid. Everyone except the young man who stepped off the shuttle alone. He was 17 now, tall and lean, with muscles built from years of running through dense forests. He wore the formal white uniform of the Human Diplomatic Corps, but the sleeves were rolled up to show his forearms. On his right arm, clearly visible, was a scar in the shape of the hunter's sign. Danny had come home. 10 years had passed since a lost little boy learned to stop running. In that time, the galaxy had changed. The Caliph were no longer unknown monsters on a forgotten world. They were a recognized species, protected by treaties that Danny himself had helped create. That it had not been easy. The humans had eventually found him 3 years after the crash. They sent soldiers to extract him, to bring him back to civilization where he belonged. Danny had refused to leave without guarantees. "These are my people," he had told the rescue commander. "If you want me to come with you, you will promise me that no human will ever harm them. You will give them the same rights as any other species." The commander had laughed. "They are animals, boy. Predators. We cannot give rights to beasts." Danny had looked at him with eyes that had seen too much for someone so young. "Then I will stay here. And you can explain to the Galactic Council why you abandoned a human child to live with animals instead of treating his family with respect." The negotiations took 2 more years. Danny served as translator, diplomat, and bridge between 2 worlds that had no reason to trust each other. He learned human politics as well as he had learned Caliph hunting. He became something new, something neither species had a word for, that a brother to both. Now he was back for a different reason. Poachers had been captured on the edge of Caliph territory. Rich humans from the core worlds, hunting Caliph for sport. They claimed they did not know the planet was protected. They claimed they thought the Caliph were just clever animals. Danny was here to make sure everyone understood the truth. But first, he had someone to see that he walked into the jungle alone. The guards tried to follow, but he waved them back. "I will be safe," he said. "I was always safe here." The jungle welcomed him like an old friend. The smells, the sounds, the way the light filtered through the canopy. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. He found Ravik in the clearing where they had first trained together. The Alpha was old now. His scales had turned from deep green to gray. His movements were slower, his 4 eyes clouded at the edges, but he still stood like a king. "Little brother," Ravik said, "you have grown." Danny knelt before him, pressing his forehead to Ravik's scarred snout. "Alpha, I have missed you. I'm not Alpha anymore. The pack follows Sira now." Danny smiled. "Then I should greet my sister." Sira emerged from the trees, and Danny's breath caught. She was magnificent. Her silver scales gleamed in the dappled light. Behind her came 3 young cubs, tumbling over each other to see the strange 2-legged creature. "Uncle," the boldest one said, "is this the human who killed a Garath?" "I am," Danny replied in perfect Caliph. "And you must be the brave hunter your mother has told me about." The cub puffed up with pride. Sira walked up to Danny and pressed her snout to his shoulder. "Welcome home, little brother. I never truly left." They spent the afternoon together, the old Alpha, the new Alpha, and the human who belonged to both worlds. Danny played with the cubs. He shared stories from the galaxy beyond. He listened to tales of hunts he had missed. As the sun began to set, Ravik spoke. "The poachers," he said. "What will happen to them?" "They will be punished according to galactic law. The Caliph are a protected species now. Harming them is a crime. Because of you." Danny shook his head. "Because of us. Because you chose not to kill a scared little boy who would not run. Because Sira saved my life when everyone else would have let me die. Because you taught me that strength is not about killing. It is about knowing when not to kill." Ravik was quiet for a long moment. "I was curious about you. That first night, I wanted to see what would happen to prey that did not run. And now..." The old hunter looked at his pack, at his world, at the human who had changed everything. "Now I know," Ravik said. "You were never prey, little brother. You were family we had not yet met." Danny stood and looked out at the jungle. Tomorrow he would return to the shuttle. He would face the Galactic Council. He would fight for his people, both of them. But tonight he was home. The cubs climbed all over him, demanding stories. Sira watched with warmth in her eyes. Ravik settled down nearby, too tired to play, but content to watch. And somewhere, beyond the stars, the galaxy would soon hear a speech that would be remembered for generations. A speech about brotherhood, about family that is chosen, not born, about a boy who fell from the sky and found something that exists in every language, on every world, in every heart that has ever known loyalty. Brother. Danny closed his eyes and smiled. He was finally, completely home.